Hi, in this video I'm going to show you and review 3 different studio suspension boom arms. Here I have a light duty one, then I've got a heavy duty one, and then I've got the branded the Rode PSA1 arm. Right, I've used all 3 of these arms. I'm going to show you the difference between the light duty, the heavy duty, and then I'm going to compare it to the much more expensive Rode PSA1. Now on Amazon or eBay, there are lots of different boom arms and it might get confusing which one to buy. So I'm also going to give you some tips when buying your boom arm. Right, I'm going to start with the light duty boom arm and I'm just going to show you some of the weaknesses and then I'll compare it to the rest, starting with where the microphone attaches. Now if you have a look here, you will probably want to tighten that. Now once it's fairly tight, from time to time you might want to be turning your microphone. So your microphone will be fitted here and you'll be turning it, and this is a weakness. If you have a look, maybe you're turning it and boom, it just pops out. And the reason why it just pops out is there's no bracket or crevice to hold that in place. Now here on the heavy duty option, what you'll find is it's a bit better designed. So if you have a look, you'll see there is a recess there stopping it from just falling out. Obviously I had loosened it. So even though it's not very tight, and I can just twist this over and over again, you can see that it doesn't just pop out. So that's a good feature, especially if the microphone is facing downwards, it won't just fall on your desk. The Rode option is more elaborate. You've got these 2 knobs over here, which both act as fastening knobs. Then you've got this pin, which twists like this. Now this is very useful. And the reason why this is very useful, when the boom arm is on your table, it's quite difficult to get this onto that. You end up turning this and you can't quite get the alignment, but because you can just loosen that, look at that, I can just fasten that directly onto the attachment point there, and if I want to loosen it, I just do it like that. So the Rode definitely has the best option here, but something that you might find annoying is this mechanism here is very snug. Especially if you've got big fingers, you might find that when you're trying to tighten this platform over here is in the way, and I'll also show you this when this is mounted on the desk. Make sure that the boom arm you get comes with this adapter nut, because it takes the smaller size and it converts it to the bigger size. Some microphone holders use the smaller size and some use the bigger size. So it's good if you can get the adapter to allow you to fit both size microphones or suspension mountings. The heavy duty option that I purchased does come with the adapter nut, and the Rode also comes with its own adapter nut. Now in terms of the full extension length, the shortest one is actually the Rode. Right, so I've aligned all the bottom sections and I'll just show you the extension length. Right, so you can see that the light duty and the heavy duty pretty much the same length, and the Rode just about 7 centimeters shorter. Just keep that in mind. Now the light duty is really light, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Just look at the width of the material. Right, so the light duty is about 0.8 millimeters thick over there, and the tubing, you can see it's actually less than 0.6 millimeters. And if we compare it to the heavy duty option, you can see there about 1.4 millimeters. Right, and looking at the thickness of the tubing over here, you can see it's about 1 millimeter, and over here just less than 2 millimeters. Right, the mass of the light duty less than 600 grams, keeping in mind that I do have that still in place, and the heavy duty just over 1 kilogram, so basically double the weight of the light duty, and the Rode about 300 grams heavier than the heavy duty. Now in terms of threading your cable, you can put your cable there and thread it all the way through there. It comes up there, goes round like that, and it can come through and come out at the top right to where your microphone is. If you prefer not to thread your cable inside, you can strap your cable using this hook and loop strap over there and just thread your cables like that. On this heavy duty option, there is also a space for cable over there. It will then do a loop over there and enter into the second tube, and it will come out over there feeding into your microphone. The light duty version also has a space for it, albeit a little bit snug. If you have a look here, this is actually the way it came. The manufacturer must have tightened these posts too tight, and as you can see, it's actually a little bit kinked here. So if you put your cable here, it might depress on the cable a little bit, but nevertheless you could put your cable through there and along the final tube. When I use this one, I never put my cable through there, I just use cable ties. Right, so now just comparing the mounting position. So here are the three. You can see that they all have this circular tube that is going to be fitted into something like that. And I'll just talk to you about the light duty. If you have a look at it, you can see that it's completely fatigued. And what had happened is this alloy here got so fatigued that I had to actually put this screw in here, because look at that. I mean, I can just bend that with my finger. So I put this in here to assist it, to make sure it still maintained some level of strength while mounted. You'll also see that this is very narrow, and this is part of the problem. So if you look at the profile, there you can see that is narrow, but what you should look out for when you buy yours is you can see how much wider this particular unit is. So even though it is heavy duty, please try get one that is wide like this. It helps with the lateral bending. It also makes it attach more firmly when you are pulling the microphone at a slight angle. So if you have a look at that width, compare it to that width, and that helps with the alignment. Now this is also thicker on the heavy duty. If I show you the Rode, this whole section here is thick. I'm not worried about any lateral movement on this particular one. It is pretty solid. Now another thing you need to look out for is the type of mounting bracket you're going to get. So what's important here is, are you going to be drilling a hole through your table and mounting it like that? So this comes with the Rode. As you can see, it's like a surface mount. Then you will just place this inside there and it is flush on your table. This is useful if your working area is very wide and you can't get to the edge of a table to mount something like this. Also useful if you've got lots of microphones. So here you're going to drill through your table and then tighten this nut over there. Very nicely finished. It's got its branding, but what I like is the plastic inlay that provides you with smooth turning, and I don't anticipate any noise because it is plastic. Now the other thing you need to look out for is how big the mouth opens. If your table is really thick, you might need to have a wider mouth. So the one that came with the heavy duty is this wide, which will give you about 4.5 centimeters of opening space there. The Rode one is going to give you quite a bit more at about 7.5 centimeters. Now something else you might want to look out for is, can you mount this vertically and horizontally? Why would you mount this horizontally? Well, if you've got a leg of your table, you could mount it horizontally and then put your boom arm sideways. And if you want to do a side attachment, you can put it on the side, but just keep in mind that now it is quite difficult to get this in. So you would need to have a standoff position, or this wouldn't be in the way. So if you want to mount it on a pole, just keep in mind that this must not be in the way of where you put your boom arm. Right, so there I fitted it using the side hole attachment point. This knob over here tightens it so that the boom arm can't rotate, and this works for both orientations. I will still show you this when it is mounted. Just having a look at this, I personally don't like this type of option. It is not easy to get a good grip. You need to wear rubber gloves to turn this tightly. This is a much better option and it is easier to turn, and also this material here I feel is stronger. Even though this is much thicker, being thicker, it actually makes this more difficult to turn, believe it or not. Now from a physics point of view, the wider the mouth, the better it's going to sit on the table, especially when you're pulling the microphone laterally. For example, if you see this is going to sit on the table, the width that is going to mate with the table is actually not that wide. So that's going to give you quite a lot of force, and eventually this could dent your table, especially if it's wooden. It does come with this foam section here, but over a very short period of time, I can tell you that this is going to be completely flush, and it's basically just going to be this steel on your table rocking from side to side. Over time, it's probably going to deform your wooden table if it is a wooden table. Now, having a look at the Rode version, this is a much better design because you can see that the circumference here is much wider, the surface area is much wider, and having that wider area, you'll see that this is actually more stable on your table, which I'll still demonstrate. So my advice, when you're choosing one, try to get one that's as wide as possible, and also that it is steel or some alloy rather than a plastic one. I've had bad experience with the plastic ones. They sometimes just snap. You can see how light this duty is. I mean, I can just bend this with my hand, not even with a lot of pressure. Look at that. I just squeeze that together, pull it apart. Look at those posts. The spring isn't even extended and it's already bending. If I extend the spring, you'll see these posts will lean a little bit downwards. Right, I'm not sure if that's coming through on the camera very clearly, but it's actually leaning a little bit to the side. So that shows me that the material, or the size of the material inside there, is also quite thin because it is already leaning. Right, just having a look at this alignment, you can see that it is completely out of alignment. It is supposed to be there, but if I let it go, you can see it pulls to the left. So this is bent somehow, and actually it's not even worth bending it back because it gets bumped and it immediately loses its alignment. The knobs are also really light duty. They're hollowed out, which unfortunately is the same for the heavy duty version. You can see there is a hollowed out knob, basically the same knobs for both of these boom arms. Right, for the remainder of this video, I'm just going to be comparing the heavy duty to the Rode PSA1. Here you can see they are now mounted. Now I'll just show you the fully extended length of the two units. Right, so you can see there is that slight difference. If I do move the Rode one, you can see that it automatically wants to go back to its resting position, and you can see that it is pretty spring loaded. So it's advised to always have the microphone mounted here, otherwise this can spring load back, and if you've got a monitor behind you, you might find it hits the monitor. The heavy duty, for example, has the spring loading, but it is definitely moderate. As you can see, it doesn't whack back, and there it is moving slightly. You can adjust it and tighten it, and you can see that it now no longer springs back, although if I do take it to its fully extended position, it does come up a little bit, but definitely not as spring loaded as the Rode. Right, so there I've put a light microphone. This is the Samson R215S, and you can see that with the microphone the unit operates perfectly well. Nothing wrong with the motion at all. You can turn it, you can move it up and down, keeping in mind that you'll probably load it with other items as well, and I'll just show it to you with a 1 kilogram load. And here you can see I'm trying to mount this, and it is always a bit tricky trying to get the threads aligned. Right, this is the NT1 microphone by Rode with the suspension and the pop filter. Altogether, this weighs at 1.04 kilograms. Right, so there it is now loaded up onto the heavy duty one. Right, so if I pull it up, you can see it sliding back down. If I pull it down, it wants to carry on going down a bit, and you can see that it's definitely not maintaining the position that nicely. If I extend it, so you can see that it's wanting to collapse onto the table. Now, even if you tighten this, you can hear that it's at the maximum. I'm uncomfortable tightening it anymore when I hear that type of noise. So even if I tighten here, they're both at the maximum, and you can see that it's definitely not maintaining this 1 kilogram. But there is a workaround, and I'll show you what to do. Now on this stand, I can actually release the spring, and if you have a look there, you'll see there are some pre-drilled holes. So in this case, it allows you 3 different tension levels. Now I've already put it to the maximum, so this is not going to solve the problem, but I'm just showing you this as your first step. You may have found that when you bought it, it was set to the minimum, and then all you need to do is take pliers, open this, and move it to the maximum. So you see, you could take your pliers and only do this repair when the springs are removed. So in this case, you could shift this along, increasing the tension, allowing for a heavier microphone. So in my case, I've already put it to the maximum tension, and it still doesn't manage this microphone. So now I'm going to show you the second workaround. You'll notice that there are some nuts. If you take your pliers or a small socket set, you could just increase the tension here by 1/4 of a turn or a 1/16 of a turn, just a little bit. So all that's doing is it's making it a bit stiffer. If you do that on each screw, you'll see that it will be able to handle this microphone. And on the base, you've got 1, 2, and 3. Right, now that I've tensioned those nuts, you can see that it is definitely a lot better. As I pull it up or pull it down, it now stays in place. If I bounce it, it is only marginally dropping, but it is maintaining some stability. If I extend it back and then I bounce it, you can see that it's definitely better, and as I pull it up, it does stay there now. So you can also tighten these a bit more. If you're finding that you're having to tighten these excessively, then maybe the microphone is too heavy for your boom stand. Now the heavy duty microphone in this case says it can handle 1 kilogram. This is actually 1.04 kilogram, but keeping in mind you still need to add the weight of the cable. So this would now be at its maximum. Now fastening this onto here is very easy, because all I need to do is turn this pin. So this is one of the benefits of this. You can see I just turn this pin and now I just fasten these two knobs on the side. But what I don't like is how snug these knobs are to the frame of the boom arm. Alright, just having a look at the Rode version. It's got a very smooth spring option, and you can see that when I bounce it, it wants to stay where it is. And when I pull it down, it stops where it is, and I pull it up and it stops where it should stop. If I extend it, there you can see it's extended to the maximum, and even when I tap on it, it's still maintaining its position. It's not just dropping. So definitely an improvement compared to the heavy duty option I have. Right, so it is still weighted with the heavier microphone, and I'm moving this pretty vigorously. And what I'm showing you is how much support this base plate or this holder is offering. Right, having a look at this, you can see that I haven't actually got the microphone on and it's already rocking. I will now tighten it, and I suggest you retighten it at times, especially to compress the foam there, and use rubber gloves. It'll give you some extra grip. And now when I move this, you can see that it is still giving a bit of wobble there. Not as stable as the Rode, but doing the job nevertheless. Right, now if you're going to mount this very close to a wall, so say for example this was mounted at the back of your desk, you have to keep in mind that the minute this travels back to its resting position, it's going to want to go a bit backwards. So you can see you're going to have to give yourself at least 20 centimeters room at the back of your table. If you want it to be exactly vertical, you can see it's going to lean outwards. If you need this to sit exactly vertical, you can see that there is a distance that is created. Now another option is to install this on a wall and to pull it down from the wall to in front of your table, and I'll just show you a little bit about what that looks like. So say for example you did want to mount it on a wall like there. As you can see, I've got a wall mount option there. When you want to pack it away completely, you can see that it is going to hit the wall. So it would have to be like that in order to put it at rest. So as you can see, this would have to be a bit open in order for this to be put on the wall, because the minute you close it, it's now going to knock on the wall unless you put it sideways like that. Now none of these studio arms actually do fit on a wall. I'm just showing you something that I made, which was a retrofit. Now, something else you need to be aware of, as you can see, when you bring this down, this does want to scratch or hit the desk, and it's the same for the heavy duty version. You can see that it would have the same problem, actually a bit worse, as you can see that distance there. So you would need to flip this up like that. So keep that in mind when you are designing your placement, because if you're going to keep on having to do this, you're going to find that it keeps getting loose. You're going to have to keep tightening it. Alright, so in closing, what I think I say, please don't waste your money with the light duty. Even if you're someone who's not going to use the microphone often, rather just pay more and just get the heavy duty option. Do you need to spend considerably more to get the Rode? Well, not necessarily. The heavy duty can manage the Rode microphone, but if you are going to be using this every single day for an hour or two, maybe consider something more premium, although this one does also have one or two limitations. Alright, thanks for watching and cheers.